I think everything is controlled and regulated. There are spiritual things going on in the world, and that there are things that are bigger than just coincidence, and that a ritual is something that you do over and over and over again a certain way.
Whether it's sheer incompetence or outright malevolence, the reality is stark. California's in a state of turmoil. It's time to take back our community and our state and put the power and the privilege in the hands of competent leaders whose goals are to protect us.
I feel like everything that's going on in LA right now was a trap. Something about these LA riots do not sit right with me. I'm talking about the timing, the energy, the way everything is being covered. It's like they knew this was coming, y'all.
So, LA is not okay. Streets are packed, protests are turning into riots, buildings are getting torched, and more importantly, innocent people are getting arrested. And while most folks are stuck watching this drama, Katt Williams and Mel Gibson are out here making noise in a different way. And it's not just random Hollywood ranting. They're both saying what a lot of people are already thinking but scared to say out loud.
I hate to seem like a petty individual for picking apart lies, but Jussie Smollett gonna keep lying until you say we don't believe you. Like, it's important in the checks and balances of the universe that liars not get to make complete narratives for themselves.
See, Katt's always been that dude to speak on things people try to keep quiet. And Mel? He's been going off for years about how corrupt Hollywood is. But now, they're both pointing at the same thing. This so-called chaos in LA might actually be a distraction. And if that sounds crazy, just wait. Because here's where things start lining up. The timing of the riots? It just so happens to blow up right when Diddy is in the middle of the biggest legal disaster of his life. We're talking about his ongoing trial, because this man is literally in court for running an alleged Hollywood ring that spans decades, with over 70 lawsuits filed against him. So ask yourself, why did the headlines suddenly shift? Why did the riots start now? Why did Diddy's court case, which had everyone talking for weeks, suddenly get hidden under riot coverage? Because while y'all watching folks protesting on the streets, the real thing might be taking place behind the scenes.
People gotta start understanding. We all seen this playbook before. We gotta stop acting like history haven't shown us. Escalate tension, then show the chaos, and then push for a solution that nobody asked for.
So here's what kicked everything off: a wave of aggressive ICE raids in LA. And we're not talking about small neighborhood sweeps. These happened out of nowhere and left many families terrified. Videos started circulating of people getting snatched up, storefronts getting smashed, and entire communities being shaken. Windows were shattered, cars were set on fire, stores were looted, businesses were destroyed, and it all escalated way too fast. Police started cracking down, but that only seemed to make things worse. And then, out of nowhere, Trump sent the National Guard, thousands of federal troops, and even Marines. They rolled up with tanks, gear, and the kind of presence you'd expect in a war zone. Now let's just stop for a second. This wasn't just about immigration raids anymore. The reaction was bigger than usual, and if you're watching the news, you start noticing something else. Because right when the images of military troops in LA started taking over every headline, Diddy's name quietly disappeared from any major discussion.
And they're gonna probably be arresting me, doing all types of crazy things just because we wanna have a good time.
Let's not act like we forgot what Diddy's caught up in right now. This isn't some minor scandal. Sean Diddy Combs is facing federal-level charges. The stuff coming out is serious. Court docs say he's being accused of decades of including running so-called freak-offs, which are basically alleged events where people were forced into making love by using illegal substances, threats, or human force. And it's not just one or two victims. There are over 70 civil lawsuits tied to this man. Some go all the way back to the 90s. And don't forget, federal agents already raided his house. This happened back in March 2024. They seized phones, hard drives, security footage, basically anything that could hold sensitive information. So why is no one talking about this anymore? Why isn't Diddy trending when the allegations against him are literally shaking Hollywood? Well, look at the headlines right now. LA riots, military presence, violence, political tension. It's loud, it's messy, and more importantly, it's distracting. This is exactly how public attention gets steered away. every time it feels like we're getting close to some real answers or accountability, some chaotic event takes over the conversation. And look, I get it. People are gonna say, well, maybe it's just coincidence. But at some point, you gotta ask, how many coincidences does it take before it stops feeling like one? Because Diddy's trial is still ongoing. Evidence is still being reviewed. Victims are still speaking. But it's all happening in the background, while the spotlight's stuck on the chaos in LA. And guess who's been calling this kind of thing out from the jump? That's right, Katt Williams.
That's the battle that's going on, is people who profit from the manipulation of others by getting you to believe something that's not the case. And that's how they make their living. And it is now a difficult time for those entities.
If you've watched any of his interviews, you know he's not scared to talk. He's been warning for years that when Hollywood's big dogs feel the heat, they find a way to change the narrative. Katt has said it clearly. The industry protects itself. And when one of their own is in trouble, especially someone as powerful as Diddy, they'll create another issue, so you don't see what's happening. And now that LA is literally engaged in extreme riots, it looks like he saw this coming. Some folks close to him have even said Katt predicted this exact pattern, a major disaster hitting right before bigger names get exposed. Again, if it was just once, we could call it coincidence. But Katt's been consistent. Every time there's a scandal with elite Hollywood figures, he says the same thing: watch the distractions. And let's be real, he's been blackballed before for speaking up. But he hasn't stopped. And now that more people are listening, he's not just throwing out wild opinions. He's dropping receipts.
And most of the stuff I wouldn't have believed until I had to get to a certain level to get to see the proof, you know what I mean? So I was as shocked as anybody about.
But Katt's not alone in this. Mel Gibson just jumped in with his own theories.
Is it on purpose? Which, it's an insane thing to think. But one begins to ponder whether or not there is a purpose in mind. What could it be, you know? I don't know. Do they want the state empty? I don't know.
So Mel Gibson shows up on Fox News, and he's clearly not holding back. He says straight up, the fires, the riots, all the chaos in LA is not a natural disaster. He actually used the word commissioned, like someone might have ordered those stuff. Now that's a big claim, right? But here's the thing. This isn't just a Hollywood actor throwing out a conspiracy theory. Mel Gibson lost his home in the fires. This man actually watched his house burn to the ground in those same California wildfires. So when he speaks, it's not just theory, it's personal.
Mel Gibson has a huge point here. He suffered the loss of his house in the fires, so it's something he suffered from particularly.
And it's not just Mel Gibson. Reports say Diddy's home was also one of many destroyed during these fires. Again, could this be a coincidence? But it's the context that makes it suspicious. You've got a man on trial for decades worth of allegations, and then suddenly his property just disappears in a wildfire? People are asking real questions here.
Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear they're unable to respond effectively and responsibly during calamity.
Mel Gibson didn't name Diddy directly on live TV, but he did call out LA leadership, Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, for letting the city fall apart. He said California is in a state of rampant lawlessness. And he didn't stop there. He asked out loud why these leaders are still in power, calling for people to take back the city. Again, Mel's no stranger to controversy. But this time, people aren't just brushing him off. Because he's not just pointing fingers, he's experiencing reality. And yeah, maybe that's why more people are actually listening. But this is not the first time this type of mess has happened. Let's go back to January 2025. LA got hit with some of the worst wildfires in years. Over 37,000 acres burned, and over 16,000 structures were destroyed.
Firefighters in Los Angeles are warning that increasing winds could potentially result in explosive fire growth from the existing wildfires.
Now that alone sounds like a tragedy, but here's what got people talking. Certain homes were burned to ash, and the houses right next to them were barely touched. I mean, there are drone shots and satellite pics showing this. One mansion is wiped out, and the house next door looks completely fine. Now, most people might say it's wind patterns, or just bad luck, But then, folks started putting it together. They remembered that just months before, federal agents raided Diddy's homes, looking for evidence tied to his charges. They took phones, hard drives, surveillance footage, anything they could get their hands on. So now ask yourself, if they already seized a bunch of stuff, what else was left behind? And more importantly, what if the fire took care of the rest? That's where the theories start heating up. Because once you realize Diddy's house was on fire after the raids, and it's part of an area with strange burn patterns, it's not hard to believe that he may have wanted certain evidence erased for good.
One of the first questions, I'll be honest, that I'm going to look at when I look at some of the communities involved is how many of the homeowners were on the P. Diddy list?
Now, a lot of folks believe the fires weren't random. They claimed it was a cover-up, and someone set those fires on purpose to destroy what the feds didn't get during Diddy's mansion raid. A person commented saying, "It's all about destroying evidence and then claiming victimhood." Another one added, "I knew the government and the elites had something to do with this as soon as it happened." Honestly, given how clean and convenient the timing was, it's not that wild of a thought. Diddy's had some political connections, but that's not all. Let's talk about that call. A leaked recording started circulating on the internet, and in it, Diddy allegedly tells his son to get rid of the pizza boxes.
"I'm gonna need you to get rid of all the leftover pizza boxes."
The what?
All the boxes left over from the pizza. All the boxes.
Okay.
Make sure you recycle the plastic like we talked about.
Now, if you're just hearing that and thinking, what's the big deal? It's just pizza. You're not wrong. But here's the thing. In Hollywood code, pizza has been used in some very different ways. We won't dive into all of it here, but the term has been tied to coded language for trafficking-related activities in previous high-profile investigations. So when Diddy, who's literally facing the same charges, says that to his son while evidence is being collected and houses are burning, people started connecting the dots. They think that pizza boxes might not be pizza at all. It could have been physical evidence, stuff they didn't want the feds to find. Now that's wild enough. But then there's another theory that makes this even messier. Some say there were underground tunnels under Diddy's property. Yeah, actual underground routes. And people believe those tunnels could have been used for stuff the feds would be very interested in. Now, before you brush this off, just know, there were underground lithium battery tunnels actually found after the fires. These tunnels weren't public knowledge until they were accidentally exposed during the cleanup. So that adds fuel to the idea that these weren't just regular homes burning down. They were places that might have held strong evidence. And guess who warned us about the tunnels and the burn-it-all plan? Diddy's former victim, Allie Carter.
A lot's about to come out. Another arrest is coming again. Watch for those fires. Explosions make fires too. Explosions make accidental fires too. And then, oops, we don't know how that happened. And then you look into it and you see that it's tied to something that's tied to something that's tied to something that's tied to trafficking. And then you realize, oh, it wasn't just an explosion or a fire. It wasn't an accident.
If you've been following the Diddy case, you already know who she is. And if not, here's why people are paying attention. Allie Carter went viral a while back for making some wild claims about what she allegedly saw going down in Hollywood's underground parties. And when we say underground, we don't just mean behind closed doors. We're talking about underground locations, tunnels, secret rooms, hidden setups inside big mansions, that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, most people ignored her comments. I mean, it sounded crazy. But here's what made people pay attention. The names she dropped. She didn't tiptoe around it. She said she saw big-time celebrities like John Travolta, Robin Williams, Kathy Griffin, and more involved in shady activity in these places. She claimed she was trapped in these circles and witnessed disturbing stuff involving powerful people.
No, there were many comedians. Kathy Griffin, Robin Williams.
Again, you can believe her or not. That depends on you. But what makes her claims stand out is how specific and bold she was. Most folks don't throw out names like that unless they're either totally lying or totally done being silent. But here's where things get interesting. Months before the wildfires in LA even started, Allie Carter posted warnings saying fires were coming and that they wouldn't be natural. She said the fires would be used to destroy evidence, to cover up crimes, and to burn the proof that certain people didn't want to get out. And then what happened? Well, not to tell you, we all saw LA burn, just like she warned. Now again, some people might call that a coincidence, but it's hard to ignore the timeline here, especially when those fires destroyed properties linked to Diddy and other celebrities whose names have come up in shady conversations for years. And it's not just the fact that fires happened, it's how they happened. The burn patterns, the sudden outbreaks, the weird silence from officials. It all lines up too perfectly with what Allie described. She even said that explosions would be part of the plan. And sure enough, during live news coverage of the fires, explosions were caught on camera in multiple areas. People said it sounded more like demolition blasts than wildfires. And if you watched it live, you probably remember that feeling like something wasn't right.
How do you feel looking at this morning?
I'm going to break down again. That's what I feel.
It blew through all of the old town, the iconic. I was saying old town. Sorry.
This is our retirement. This is our nest egg. This is where we moved in when we got married. This is where our son was born. This was our house.
At this point, it's clear. We're not just talking about one person or one event. This goes deeper than Diddy. This touches the core of how Hollywood has operated for decades. And if there's anyone who's been calling this out consistently, it's Mel Gibson and Katt Williams. Mel has been dragged through the mud for years, but he's never backed down. He's said it in interviews, he's hinted at it in speeches. Hollywood has a dark side. He says it's run by power, blackmail, and control. That some of the biggest names you see on red carpets are part of an alleged secret society.
It is sad to see. But, as always, I don't think it's the institution that's at fault. I think it's a lot of the people that get in it. And, institution's good or as bad as the people in it running it, So, yeah, it's having a bit of a rugged time at the moment. And I think there's going to need to be a house cleaning, and it's going to have to come back to some sort of equilibrium.
Now, of course, every time he says this, they try to discredit him. They call him unstable. They say he's ranting. But let's be honest, if he was really just making stuff up, then why did Hollywood folks try to shut him down? Same goes for Katt Williams. Every time he opens his mouth about Hollywood's secrets, the industry tries to label him as crazy or off his meds. But if you actually listen to what he's saying, it's not a lie. He's pointing out specific people and connecting real events to the bigger picture. And here's the part that keeps coming up. Why do these two guys always get punished for speaking out? If it's all nonsense, if it's all lies, then why not just ignore them? But instead, they get pushed out of projects and basically told to disappear. That kind of reaction usually means they're telling some sort of truth. And now, with everything going on, Diddy's case, the fires, the riots, both Mel and Katt are back in the spotlight. But this time, people are listening a little closer. Because suddenly, their crazy warnings don't sound so crazy anymore. Maybe they were just ahead of the curve. Maybe the stuff they've been trying to say for years is finally breaking through. Because maybe, just maybe, they're finally telling the truth out loud. But what do y'all think? Do you think these LA riots were just a result of people's frustration? Or do you think they were a perfectly timed distraction to protect Diddy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're here for the truth, or at least for the questions most people won't ask, go ahead and hit that bell icon for more updates.